American Handgunner Insider.
Hey folks, Tom McHale here with another episode of American Handgunner Magazine Insider. Recently, I've been working on finishing one of my books. I'm a little embarrassed to say I've had this thing in the works for several years now. It's a practical guide to concealed carry, and I'm putting the finishing touches on it, trying to wrap it up and get it out the door. I'll let you know when that's done and finished. But it got me to thinking as I was talking about defensive concepts and things like that, about the importance of holsters. So today I want to talk about something a little different. We might be stirring the pot just a bit, but I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. I don't like them, a certain kind of holster, and we'll get to that in a second. But in fairness, I'm going to tell you why. And you can agree, you can disagree. We can discuss it in the comments. I do keep an eye on those. So feel free to leave your thoughts there. And what I'm talking about is the wrong holster. You may know what I'm referring to here. It's also, you might know them as floppy holsters. So think of those felt, suede type things that have no structure. You know, you pick it up by the bottom end and it's just going to flop around on you. Usually they have some kind of plastic clip sewn on the outside there. The idea for these is you carry them on a inside the waistband scenario. So you stuff it in between your pants and belt and your body, and the clip goes over pants and belt and kind of hooks onto the outside. Usually, they don't even have a retention hook on the bottom of the clip to keep the holster in place. So they are very, very convenient. They are very, very comfortable, and they are very, very cheap. And I'm using that word deliberately instead of inexpensive or affordable, because I think cheap is the operative word. And we just have to remember we're talking about issues here with potential life and death consequences. So cheap isn't a word I prefer to use when it comes to gear choices, but hey, to each his own. Again, let me know in the comments if you have different opinions. So let's dive into this a little bit. In the book and in various writings, I have a couple of opinions on what a good holster should do. We all say, oh, that's a great holster. That's a great holster. Well, my inclination is to step back and say, why? What makes it a great holster? Well, I have personally, and this is my opinion, I have three criteria that I look at when evaluating a holster. One, a holster is designed to protect the trigger, keep stuff out of there, prevent the trigger being moved. Regardless of what you hear on the nightly news and in the papers and online, guns don't just go off. Trigger movement causes guns to fire. It's as simple as that. It can be from a finger, it can be from an object or obstruction that is in the way when you go to reholster a gun that makes that trigger move or forces it to move. But operating the trigger operates the gun. So that's criteria number one. The second one is gun security. I think it's important that the gun remain with your body at all times and in all conditions, all reasonable conditions. Okay. Walking around or sitting at your desk, not a big deal. That's probably going to happen. Other activities like, oh, I don't know, fighting during a mugging or an active shooting event or attack, running, is your gun going to stay with you? So, gun security is a strong number two there. Number three, in my book would be, I'll call it orientation. And what I'm referring to there is, if you have to use a gun for a defensive purpose, you need to know exactly where it is, and you need to be able to withdraw or retrieve that thing, ideally using muscle memory from practice. But you know what? Let's back up. Let's talk about the ladies for a second. I know a lot of ladies who purse carry. I get it. It is very difficult given the variety of types of wardrobe for women to do the perfect inside the waistband or outside the waistband carry. It just doesn't work with all types of clothing. So I get it. You got a gun in a purse. It's if it's flopping around in there without some sort of mounting system holster, is it going to be upside down? Good chance. If you're talking about a semi-automatic, the grip is very heavy, so gravity is going to encourage that to go down somehow. It might be upside down, it might be sideways, it might be reversed. If you have some kind of device, aka a holster, to ensure that it's oriented as you expect it to be, that's a big benefit. So my number three is orientation. For us guys or women who do carry around the belt line, I want that cant, I want the positioning, I want it to be right where my hand expects to find it. So let's drill into those just a little bit more. I mean, it's not hard to find a holster that will adequately and safely protect the trigger. Most any Kydex holster that covers the trigger guard area will do that. If you're watching the video, you see a Klinger holsters no print wonder on the left side here. It's a nice Kydex holster, does a great job for large guns. It's got a nice area that covers the trigger guard. And in their case, they use some indentations in the Kydex there to help provide some retention features to address that number 2 criteria as well. On the right, I picked out a Galco pocket holster just to show that you don't need a perfectly boned or molded holster to protect the trigger guard. This is a leather holster that's designed for a snubby, and it's shaped to accommodate a snubby, but it's, as you can see in the picture, if you're watching the video version, it's not what holster makers call precisely boned to the shape of the gun. That is fine because it does a great job of protecting the trigger in your pockets. Side note on pocket carry, if you carry that way, be sure that's the only thing in your pocket. I've got some other stuff in the picture here. That's for the other pockets. So protect the trigger, number 1. Number 2, gun security. Lots and lots of options here, whether you like Kydex or leather. On the left, we've got a series of holsters from Blackhawk and 1791 gun leather, and the one in the middle there is from LAS Concealment. It's relatively easy to perfectly mold a Kydex holster to fit an exact specific model of gun. So if you're working with a good holster company that is making custom 2-gun fit holsters, you can mold it very tightly and adhere and kind of follow all those shapes and contours of the gun, maybe apply a little friction pressure to the trigger guard area, and you've got a holster that is capable of holding your gun in place, whether you're fighting, running, wrestling, jumping, what have you. Okay. If you're a leather fan, same rule applies. Even without a thumb strap, as shown in this Galco waistband holster here, you can, with good leather work and a little bit of time, you'll pay some dollars for it, but you can get a holster that will hold your gun in place. One thing I like to do using a verified unloaded gun is what I call the shake test. Empty gun here, turn that holster upside down, don't squeeze it, and apply your own pressure. Shake it. Does it stay in place? If so, I call that a good and desirable feature. Last but not least, orientation, waistband carry. There's a lot of options for this. I kind of like the models out there with attachment points spread apart by some distance. That gives you stability and consistency in how that gun's going to be oriented. On the right hand side, you see a Galco model with cut and sewn belt loops. One, that's not going anywhere. If you look closely, you can see it's a nicely boned leather holster, so the retention features are excellent on this model. You do have to thread your belt through it, but if you don't want to do that, get one like the High Noon model on the left. It's got clips, but again, they're separated by some distance. So that cant angle and positioning of the gun that you see in the picture is going to be there all the time as you go throughout your daily business. So going back to these 3 criteria, how does the floppy holster compare? I'm going to posit not very well across the board. Protecting the trigger, yes, kind of. We're talking about soft material here. Can you operate that trigger with a finger or other object? Yeah, you probably can. Security, I'm going to have to give that a hard no on the floppy holster. One, it slips on your belt. A lot of them don't have retention hooks. With the blue gun or a plastic inert gun in a floppy holster, try wrestling around with that sometime. Try running. See how that works out for you. Does your gun stay with you? Maybe, maybe not. Orientation, probably okay. Again, the mounting system's not so hot. It's going to move around on you a little bit. And I'm just not a fan. Can you tell? With all that said, let me know your thoughts. Kind of like to hear what you have to say about the floppy holster. I get it. It's cheap. It's inexpensive. There's holsters can be $50, $70, $80, $100 or more. But again, we're talking life and death. So with that, I'm going to say rant over for today. Let me know what you think. But before I go, I got some cool news for you. We have a new book out. Those of you who read the magazines might be familiar with the name John Connor. He is probably one of the world's greatest storytellers. We have compiled a 380 some page book of a lot of his best stuff from over the years. So that is available now. You can find that on our corporate website on fmgpubs.com, or you can get to that through americanhandgunner.com. You can also order it on Amazon.com. Just search for Odd Angry Shot by John Connor. That's the title. All right, that's enough for the day. If you want more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the like on this screen, and we'll keep them coming to you. We will catch up with you next time.